One of the things that I've learned about solo travel, especially as a senior, is that sometimes the best adventures begin when things go wrong. This story from a northern Italy adventure is one of those days. What started off as a simple day trip for me to the Alps turned into one of the most memorable days of my travels. A few years back, on a springtime trip to Italy, I found myself in Torino with an extra day to spare. As I've mentioned before, one of the advantages of traveling on your own is that you can change your plans or decide on a bit of a whim that you want to go somewhere. I decided I'd like to take a train up into the Italian Alps. And after a bit of research, I decided to do a day trip to visit the town of Aosta. That night, I slipped across the road from my hotel to the train station and purchased my ticket for the next morning. My plan for the next day's activities were researched and set in motion. The next morning, I was at the train station about 20 minutes early. I found which track my train was on from the ever-changing schedule on the wall and headed to binario number 3. When I arrived on the platform to board the train, the door of my assigned car was shut tight. I showed the conductor, who was standing by the train, my ticket. He looked at me sheepishly, shrugged, and said two unforgettable words. Treno kaput. Kaput. No translation needed. 3 friendly Italians on the platform, eager to help this befuddled senior tourist, immediately joined in, all talking at once in a lively mix of English and Italian, trying to help me find another route to my destination, Aosta. Between my broken Italian and their fractured English, I gathered that I could catch a train heading towards Chatillon or something like that, and then change there to one bound to Aosta. One of the fellows warned me that the train I needed, which was on the adjacent track, was leaving momentarily and urged me to hurry and get on. So I dashed aboard, grateful for their help and just a bit uncertain as to what I'd actually agreed to do. The train started slowly pulling away before I even had a chance to find a seat to sit down. A few minutes later, the conductor appeared. He asked me for my ticket. I'm going to Aosta, I said proudly, and gave him a panicked description of why I was on this train and not the one that the ticket was for. He stared blankly at me, not really understanding what I was explaining. Others in the car joined in, trying to explain to him exactly what my conundrum was. Then he frowned, gave me a long blank look, and then pointed the other way. That's when it dawned on me that I might be heading in the wrong direction. But I was not to be deterred. I knew that I was not on the train that matched my ticket, but I explained that I just needed to get off at a place that started with a C. I couldn't remember the name, and I'd switch trains there to get to Aosta. Well, he rolled his eyes, pulled out a scrap of paper, and then showed me the list of places that this train would stop. The only one that started with a C on this list was Chiamonte, and it would arrive at 9:17. So I said I'd get off there. He shrugged again, rolled his eyes a bit, and moved on. As we were reaching Chiamonte, he came back to me and tentatively, with no words, and a here you go gesture with his hand, pointed to the door. So I got off. I was the only passenger to disembark at this stop. This wasn't a good sign to me that this was actually a station that served as a junction. The station, and even the whole tiny town that was behind it, was totally silent. The station doors were all locked, the ticket machine was broken, and there was not a soul in sight. Even the public toilet was closed. Now that would lead to another story, which I won't expand on here. Still, the setting was absolutely stunning. Mountains rising all around, snow gleaming on the peaks. It was an idyllic remote setting. And for a while I just stood there and took it all in. But what will I do now, I wondered. I thought about waiting for a train back to Torino, but I was already here and into the Alps, and I wanted to see what the day might bring. About an hour later, another train arrived, this one heading deeper into the mountains. I had no idea where it was going, but I climbed aboard without hesitation. The last stop on the line was a small alpine town just 5 kilometers from the French border called Bardonecchia. Its claim to fame, I later learned, was that it had hosted the snowboarding events of the 2006 Winter Olympics. I strolled up the main street, which would likely be bustling in the ski season, but on this late April morning, it was deserted. I paused for a few moments as a funeral procession emerged from an old church. Soft music from the church organ drifted through the air. It felt very serene. At the edge of town, a mountain path beckoned. And I remembered that old line, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. For the next 2 hours, I'd climbed steadily upward, past trees, across meadows, toward the snow line. The air grew thinner and cooler. The only sounds were birds and my own breathing. I remember thinking as I walked along alone with natural beauty all around me, no one on earth knows where I am right now, not even me. And in fact, I was perfectly fine with that idea. There was a busy world out there, and here I was, quiet and alone with magnificent mountains all around me. It felt almost spiritual. Eventually, I came to a field of crocuses that was beside a small stone chapel, the Cappella di San Giacomo, first built on that site in 1456, decades before Columbus set sail for America. A nearby sign read Grange Regis, the name of that local small community, and it showed that I was 1,590 meters above sea level. Now, whether it was the altitude or just being out of shape, by then I was puffing a bit. So I lay down in the field among the crocuses, enjoying the cool, crisp mountain air and looking up at the sky. And I thought, if I dropped dead here, no one would find me for days. But what a place to go. So as you can see, thankfully I didn't die there, but I did enjoy an hour just soaking it all in. Eventually I made my way back down to town and I found one small cafe open. I had a coffee and a sandwich, and then I wandered back to the station and caught the next train back to Torino. By the time I reached my hotel, my legs were aching a bit and I was ready for a soak in the tub. That day, completely unplanned, was one of the most beautiful of my trip. You know, travel doesn't always go the way we plan, but sometimes those unexpected turns make the best stories. Have you ever had a trip that went wrong but turned out to be something wonderful? I'd like to hear about it. Mention it in the comments. Sometimes the wrong train really does take you to the right place. Safe travels. See you next time.